Well, it's supposed to be the right and responsibility of every eligible American, voting in our elections. Of course, not everyone does, with just 66% of voting age Idahoans participating in the 2020 general election. And while Idaho doesn't track ethnicity when it comes to voting, we do know Latinos and Hispanics are the second largest voting bloc in America and in the Gem State, which is why last week KTVB aired a series of stories on Latino voting in Idaho. And one of those we shared had to do with ballots being printed in Spanish, specifically in Clark County.
Correct. We are the only county required to have it on our ballots.
That's Stephanie Stewart, the county clerk. She says they have the Spanish translation because of the Federal Voting Rights Act.
There's a code that says you have to meet a certain criteria. You have to have either 10,000 people or greater than 5% who are only Spanish speaking.
The code is Section 203 and extends protections to language minorities, including Spanish speakers.
Okay, so that story, which aired in KTVB's Voto Latino special, prompted several text messages that weren't exactly the most inclusive. Karen in Boise wanted to know, why should Idaho have to publish the voter information in Spanish when they moved to the U.S.? Karen says she wouldn't go to another country and expect that information in English. She just feels like they should learn English if they're going to live here and vote. Bob, also from Boise, if you have to be a citizen to vote, and to become a citizen, you have to be able to read and understand English, why are we printing ballots in umpteen different languages? Janice texted in from Horseshoe Bend to reiterate the only citizens voting part and the reading and writing in English part, and she asks, why are they printing anything in Spanish in Idaho? And finally, perhaps the most xenophobic of the texts, Debbie wants us to please quit talking about Latino voting rights because, according to Debbie, 95% of the adults are undocumented, and therefore, if you can't speak, read, or write English, you have no right to vote. Okay, so there are about 250,000 Hispanic or Latino people in Idaho. And Clark County, while the smallest county by population, it does have the highest concentration of Latinos. Of the 790 people that live there, per the 2020 census, 42% are Latino. So to answer Janice and Karen and Bob's questions of why should we have to publish information and ballots in Spanish? Well, it's because of federal law. In 1975, Congress found the English language barrier to be voter discrimination, meaning for those not fluent in English, they were excluded from the voting process. So that year, Congress amended the 1965 Voting Rights Act, adding Section 203, which requires states, counties, and cities, or whoever holds an election, to provide ballots, registration forms, and other election materials in more than just English. But that requirement, that isn't across the board. As you heard the Clark County clerk say, the population of non-English speakers in that jurisdiction has to be at least 5% or greater than 10,000 people, and the English literacy of that population has to be below a 5th grade level, which brings up Janice and Karen and Bob and Debbie's point of you must be able to speak English to be a citizen. Well, yes, sort of. It's true, English is a course in American schools, and there is an English requirement to becoming a U.S. citizen. You have to demonstrate the ability to speak and write English, yes. Unless, of course, you're older than 50 years old and have been in the U.S. for at least 20 years. But what does it mean to demonstrate the ability to speak and write English? On the day of the citizenship test, the U.S. immigration officer is going to ask a candidate to read and write 3 sentences in English, and you only have to write one or read one of them correctly, just 1 out of 3. But they aren't reciting and scribbling down complex thoughts and sentences. Of course they're not. To give you an idea, here's just a sample of what is required for English proficiency that is, to become a U.S. citizen.
Who can vote? When is Thanksgiving? What is the largest state? What do people want in America?
Interestingly, the answer to that question was people in America want to vote. I don't know why. I don't know why that's the answer. But you can see those aren't exactly James Joyce or William Faulkner type sentences. So yes, understanding English is a requirement of citizenship. But 5-word sentences don't really qualify as above 5th grade level. And that's why federal law requires ballots, registration forms, and voter information in something other than English in places where there are language minorities. And right now, Clark County in Idaho is the only place where this is legally required, which it has done since 2022. Not that other counties couldn't do the same if they chose to. Latinos make up 13% of Idaho's population. And other than the cost of printing those ballots and information or having to adjust the obvious discriminatory attitude apparent in those text messages, what is the downside of making voting more accessible? Perhaps more Idaho counties with even larger Latino populations should consider it and consider making it known, considering what 30-year Clark County resident and U.S. citizen Maria Martinez explained why she has never voted in an Idaho election.
No, yo no sabía que había palabras en español para cuando uno va a votar.
¿No sabías eso?
No. No es que no había votado, pero este año sí.
But this year she will. And just to be clear, if your county does not provide a non-English ballot, you are allowed to bring an interpreter with you to your polling place. There's so much more valuable information in the Voto Latino special, including barriers to Latino voting, reaching young Idaho voters, and making voting more accessible for all. You can watch the entire Voto Latino special right now on KTVB Plus, KTVB.com, and KTVB's YouTube channel.